There's loads to say on this. It is very interesting, and it's a whole.
Well, I was going to ask you, what did you get to? I want to ask you about your assessment of this whole AI RAN thing. What do you make of it? Just your thoughts as an analyst of this stuff.
Yes, AI is infusing every aspect of the RAN, and it will over the next whatever years for sure. There's lots of ways of implementing it. There's lots of different definitions. It's not a good definition. But don't belabor it too long.
With and on and fucking about with,
which is
and all that
exactly, and it's too confusing. I actually prefer the Ericsson definition, albeit.
What is the Ericsson definition? I'm not even sure.
Well, they have.
That's exactly
AI.
Another thing.
This gets a bit tedious, but.
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. I'm a bit behind on news because I was chatting to Andrew, my colleague. He was sort of using up his holiday at the end of the year, and I thought, hold on a sec, I've got some holiday to use up. So I just spontaneously took Wednesday and Thursday off. So I don't really, I know what I'm talking about even less than usual. So I'll be leaning on you and our returning special guest, Gabriel Brown. Are you still heavy reading, or are you Omdia, or are you a bit of both?
Omdia.
Yeah,
full Omdia.
Full Omdia, no more heavy reading. Oh, that's a shame. I like that brand. It's almost as good as light reading. But anyway, Gabe, for people who haven't listened, has been on the pod several times. He's a colleague of ours. And you're an analyst, and your sort of core area is just sort of mobile in general, is that correct?
Yeah, mobile network.
Mobile network. Cool. Well, that's quite handy, because we've got some mobile shit to talk about this week. In terms of any opening bollocks, I got one little they won't listen to it, but it's a funny little thing. One of the things I did on my day off is Catty, my wife, decided we needed a new sofa. So I dutifully trudged over to Stevenage.
That's a big expenditure item, a sofa.
Yeah, it's about £1,000. But you can get it on interest-free credit.
Right. Dangerous.
So I sort of dutifully trudged off to a DFS in Stevenage. And we looked at sofas and had the chat with people who know more about sofas than I think it's psychologically healthy for people to know. And we bought one. We're taking a plunge. It's going to turn up after Christmas and all that. That's another £1,000 I won't be able to spend on having a laugh. But there you go.
Or presents.
Unless I have a laugh on the sofa. But then, and then I didn't think much of it. And then I had yesterday off as well. And I was just sort of doing this, that and the other. And then yesterday evening, someone came along and delivered my wallet that I hadn't even realised I'd lost. I brought it along with me just in case, because normally you can pay for things with your phone, but sometimes I bring my wallet along in case there's some phone mishap.
Cards in it?
It had all my cards and everything. And I think it had fallen out in the car park, and then someone had plonked it on top of a car, and it had taken a day to sort of find its way through. And luckily, it had my driving licence with my address on it. And I hadn't even thought about what I was going to do. I was probably going to look for it this morning and then be tearing the house apart, trying to find the fucking thing.
Was there any cash in it?
There wasn't any cash in it, no.
Yeah, that would have got.
I mean, even the wallet itself almost seems like an obsolete thing. I only brought it out because you just never know when technology is going to let you down and you need your actual cards.
I always have a wallet for that reason.
Yeah.
Because that's silly, you're looking at it and it doesn't recognise you anymore, your phone, facial...
All that stuff, yeah. But we're not far off. I mean, you get someone on the train on the way down, some guy a beggar was coming around with a little cup. Yeah. And I was thinking, fucking tough gig being a beggar these days.
He needs a
no
card
one carries
reader.
Any cash. Yeah, he needs a little square card reader.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you take your wallet around, Gabe?
No. I sometimes take a payment card, or the office... to get in the office, you need a card.
You don't do the thing that I see my wife do sometimes, where you put the payment card in the back of your thing, and then you're sometimes holding it and using it. That's very foolish, I always think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you get that nicked, you've lost both things that you have.
Yeah.
Have you told her you think that's foolish?
Yeah.
Right. And what,
I didn't quite put it that way.
How did she respond to that feedback?
Well, I didn't say it that way. I said you should carry them separately.
Right.
So
she
thought that's quite sensible.
All right. Because she's turned into Ray Winston.
Yeah, it's definitely her accent.
Well, normally you make it sound like Martina Navratilova.
Yeah, normally I do, because Ian's wife's from Slovakia, and I do impressions, but I'm not claiming any of them are any good, and my Magda impression is a falsetto and a sort of generic Eastern European
You're not going to do it now. People would be disappointed if you're not doing it.
No, I think I've done it too much. I worry that I'm going to offend her, and I don't want to offend her.
Actually, stop listening to
kick my ass, man. She was walking around New York. She's in good shape. She can walk forever.
Yeah. We're going opposite directions in terms of levels of fitness.
Right.
Moment, I think.
Are we? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, there's some opening bollocks for you. Have you got anything to add, Ian, before we get into it?
I went to the rugby with BT.
Oh yes. Yeah. We beat the All Blacks.
I went and saw maybe
often.
one of the best rugby matches that you could see in years. I think it's the first time we've beaten them for 5 years. So
yeah, it doesn't happen often.
So thanks to Giles and Richard, who kindly invited me to go along.
Yeah, thanks Giles and Richard.
Well, it was just me. It was like, they sort of have doing these one journalist at a time.
I know. So, I'm totally fine.
So I was just lucky enough to go to that.
I was a bit jealous, but yeah.
And thanks to like Zoe at CC Group, who sort of organised it and probably spent far too much time with us recently because she was on the pod the day before.
Well, I think she made a comment after she's on the pod that she spends more time with us than her family.
Yeah. Well, she'd never been to a rugby match before, and like people in the crowd, because it's quite a friendly group of people, we were sitting among them.
Yeah, rugby's so unlike football culturally in that way.
Yeah,
rugby's good, even though there's like 30 people beating the shit out of each other in the field. The crowd's always pretty.
It's a really good atmosphere. I mean, like quite a lot of banter and
lots of swing low, swing carry, and all that sort of thing.
It was good. No, it was really good fun, and I was sitting at the like the kind of narrow end, if you like, so you can see them running up and down towards you, which is different from sitting sideways. I prefer it that way because we were in the good position for the second half tries as well. We were sort of at that end.
Generally, the pricier seats are the ones in the middle.
Right. Yeah, I think I preferred sitting at the end of it.
It's a bit to your tight asses, they give you cheap seats.
Well, I liked it that way. I think I enjoyed it more than the sideways ones. So.
But was there any kind of shop talk? In a match,
there was a little bit. There was a little bit of shop talk. There was a little bit of talk about
whispering in your ear.
Well, I think they'd heard the podcast that we did where we were talking about results and Alison Kirkby and what she's like and her sort of strategy, and they were kind of sort of giving some input on that, but also what's like how she sort of compares with the previous boss.
It's only one way for her to prove what she's like is to come on the pod, isn't it?
All their views about her, but I mean they're pretty much sort of positive things to say about her.
Seems good. I think we've been nice about her, haven't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, go on, BT, bring her on the pod. I think she'd be a great fit.
Yeah,
she's very chatty, very confident, very friendly.
I can really see her sitting in here, like obviously on the camera. I can't really see the state of the room, but
yeah. Yes,
I think you might need a different studio.
We might. No, CEOs don't get special treatment.
We've had like Dennis on here.
Dennis and Brian, yeah. So for people, you can't see it, but basically, most of the time when people come on the pod, they bring beers. Sometimes there's too many. Sometimes we just don't want to drink them. Sometimes they're just scary, like 10% beers. And we just leave them lying around. It's sort of littered around where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
And Gabe seems to think that's an inappropriate environment for the CEO of a FTSE 100 company, but I beg to differ.
I suppose, she's got a mix with all sorts, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's apparently one of her things she's good at is showing the common touch, is what a lot of people say about her. So, yeah.
Cool.
Put that to the test then.
Well, exactly. So cool. No, that was a great game, and we should also note by the time this goes out that the result will have happened. But we had the first day of the Ashes. Thinking of you, Charlie Ashton. I bet you've been following it. And it was 19 wickets on the 7 of the Ashes.
It wasn't a good start, there was it? The Ashes by England.
No, but it's even shit about Australia.
Oh, okay. Right.
19 wickets and 7 overs over 1642. Up the end. I don't understand these scores.
No. Yeah, it's quite confusing if you're not following.
Yeah, you're either into cricket or you're not here. Okay. So there we are. But 90 wickets is a lot. Okay, the whole match, which was supposed to take place over 5 days, accounts for 40 wickets. So about half of them happened in the first fifth of the thing, to give you some sense of proportion. But anyway, I won't labour the point. I can see I'm not winning you round. Right, so I missed... So we just get into it now.
Oh no! You need to send to the commercial.
Oh, you think I should? You think I should pass it? You're not just going to cut it in.
These words, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a sponsor, and I'm not used to it, and we haven't really rehearsed how we do it.
Except for this one.
No, that's a good point.
Forget it.
Forget it.
Wait.
Pierre's confused because I just recorded a readout for a sponsor, but we're not going to have it on the pod until
We're just teasing it
for another couple of weeks.
Oh, that's
So maybe, Pierre, we'll get our ducks in a row before we do that one.
Sorry.
Right.
so slick and professional.
I know. People wouldn't think that we just make this shit up as we go along. So I'll just get on with it, unless you've got any other interventions, Pierre.
Well, authentic is the key
exactly,
word.
authentic. Well, I lean heavily on the term authentic because it covers a lot of sins, I think. So I missed basically the most, by far the biggest news of this week. So I'm going to defer largely to you two, and then just sort of pitch in a sort of opinionated, uninformed, shoot from the hip sort of way. Maybe I'll get it to you first, Ian, as you wrote it up, but then we'll get analysis from Gabe. So Nokia had its Capital Markets Day. And I'd say it was more, and Capital Markets Day are normally it's primarily for them to communicate with the sort of equity investment world, I think.
Yeah.
Just to say, here's what's going on, here's where we're going, get people to buy into their strategy and their vision and all that. But this one seemed more eventful than usual. So I'll pass it to you, Ian. Tell us what was going on.
Yeah. I don't know if they're usually more eventful. I mean, it's like the time when they set midterm sort of financial targets.
I'm saying this one seemed more eventful than they often are.
Yeah, maybe.
Certainly, it was the new CEO's first.
It was so coincided with him coming in, I guess, and I think companies normally have them like every 3 or 4 years, and it's like your strategy for the next 3 or 4 years. So you have like a midterm, you have a midterm target.
I assumed they were annual.
No, they're not annual.
I think they have them annually, or
I don't think Nokia has them annually. I mean, most companies don't have them every year.
No.
They have them sort of.
So this is very much Justin Hotard. There's a new sheriff in town. Here's what I'm up
It's
to.
like your equivalent of the 5-year plan, in sort of Russia or something.
Right.
It's like where you're going to be in 2028 and what the strategy is for the next few years, and there's like a financial projection connected with that. So, but there was quite a lot of restructuring that went on at the same time, which I think grabbed attention.
Yeah.
To do. I mean, if you were going to use one word to sum it up, really, it would probably be cuts. I think. Because, and I think the market may be, because he's come in and he's made a lot of noise about AI, and he's done this deal with Nvidia, and he's talked about this AI super cycle, which is an expression he's used a few times, and it sounded quite sort of like he wants to shake things up. And I think maybe
it makes me think of an autonomous bike.
Yeah, but I think having said all this, and then the Capital Markets Day, if you sum it up, really, it was a bit downbeat in terms of, and I think the equity analyst community would have looked at it and gone, oh really? And they kind of went off. I think the share price was down 7% on the day. I don't know what it's done after that, because they're clearly so their operating profit, which is the thing that people are looking at, I suppose, the guidance for your operating profit. I think they put out a target of between 2.7 and 3.2 billion in 2028. And that's up from the guiding for about 2 billion this year. So if you look at the kind of the midpoint of guidance, it's about an extra billion they're looking for in profit over the next 4 years,
right? Which
is a lot considering what they're earning at the moment. And you think, well, what's going to drive that? But what's mainly going to drive that, it seems, is cost cutting. And
haven't they just got it off Nvidia anyway? There we are. Done.
Yeah, but that kind of ties in with it a lot. But the only bit where they actually released a sales number, I think, was the network infrastructure. There was some pretty dodgy reporting, by the way, about this. I thought. Yeah, I mean, like the FT's headline, which I think I've still got open.
It was nice to have a pop at other journals.
Well, yeah, I don't normally like doing that, but I'm going to do it anyway. They said Nokia splits AI business into separate unit after $1 billion Nvidia investment. I mean, that's just like fundamentally wrong.
Yeah,
they didn't do that at all.
That was definitely a bungle.
And I think a few people had headlines like that. They didn't create any AI unit. And the bit that he's talking about there is their network infrastructure bit, which is optical IP fixed, the bit that David Hurd runs now. So David Hurd was the CEO of Infinera. That really is the bit that wasn't really, I mean, Gabe was saying earlier, because we had a chat on the phone, that his presentation was almost the most interesting one.
Okay.
But it was also the bit that wasn't really affected by all the restructuring. There's a couple of bits within that unit that have been taken out and put into this unwanted pile.
So they basically got my understanding, just catching up on it, because I'm so sad I still read about this stuff when I got my day off.
Yeah.
They've just basically created 2 sort of mega silos.
They've got 4 business units at the moment, and
what were the 4 previous and what are the two now?
So there's four. There's network infrastructure, which is the bit I've just been talking about,
Yeah.
which is largely unaffected by the update.
Fixed line stuff.
Well, it's fixed optical and IP, but that's the bit that the FT meant was the AI bit.
Right.
They talk about an AI unit, but they've not done anything with that really, apart from take two bits of it, which I think's like fixed wireless CPE stuff, and there's another bit that they've basically put into this sort of unwanted pile of businesses they're basically trying to sell. And then the other three are being merged, essentially, and some bits of them are being taken out as well and also being put into the unwanted pile.
And so the other three is mobile. Sorry, go on.
Mobile network.
Yeah.
Core, like cloud and network services, which is
Right.
like the core network stuff and other things related to that. And Nokia Technologies. And Nokia Technologies is the bit that basically sells licenses and that is very profitable because you sort of lean on the research and the work that other units are doing, and then you're kind of selling the IP. I think they have like ridiculous margins. They were saying I think it's like 1.4 billion in sales over the last 12 months, and the profits are like 1.1 billion at that. So by merging those three units into one, which they're going to call mobile infrastructure, you've got a much more profitable business because you can cut some costs. You're going to take some bits out and dump them, but you've also moved this really profitable bit of the company into it, which makes it look a lot better to investors. But it's quite a weird move in a way because it also makes it harder to see what mobile network is doing. It kind of obscures the performance. I mean, equity analysts will be able to sort of work this out to some extent because that's what they do. They kind of look at how it was doing previously and they have their own estimates, but you're still sort of concealing from immediate view what the profitability of that unit. And
there's still, I mean, I see your point, but inevitably they're going to have to reveal what the patent licensing business is generating as profit because everyone's going to want to know.
They're going to tell the banks, I suppose.
By far they're most profitable.
But they've got rid of the perception that they have like a big unit that isn't doing very well, which is and that's his challenge.
Which is mobile.
Yeah, I mean Justin Hotard, his big challenge, and he pretty much said this as soon as he got up on stage, was mobile networks is underperformed. We're not happy with it. We need to fix it. We need to do something about it.
Someone paid the price for that, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the guy who runs it at the moment, Tommy Wheater, going. Yeah, I mean, I think that if you say something like that, then I think you probably have to make a clean break with the past. You can't sort of put out that message and then keep management there.
I guess I'd like to speculate more about Tommy and all this, but
I think
we'll come to that.
think that's the main reason.
Okay, fair enough.
You can go into the nitty-gritty of strategic differences, but I think if you stand up on stage, and he's been under pressure for ages now, by the way, to do something about mobile networks. There's even been speculation about will it get sold to the US?
Yes.
Will it get,
no, I know.
You've got to come along and go. He's done this restructuring. He's stood on stage. He said, we're not happy with the returns of that business. You can't really sort of go, well, we're just going to keep the guy who's running it there. I don't think. It just doesn't work that way.
I'll have a slight different view on that. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I have maybe...
Go on.
Let him...
No, sorry, interrupt.
Because otherwise he's going to sell into a monologue.
Yeah, no, you interrupt.
I mean, I've got
Have
notes.
you forgotten the format, Gabe?
I've got notes on this because I've seen a lot of capital markets days.
Right,
for
yeah,
Nokia
no,
and so
go
forth
for it,
over the years. I mean, I think on that point, I mean, to some extent, I agree. To another extent, I think there's sort of some good and bad about what they presented. I thought it looked bad for them, this is my perspective, to set up their biggest revenue unit without a leadership in place.
Yeah.
And have Justin Hotard himself talk to it. He's not a mobile guy. He doesn't really know that business or industry.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I thought it was quite a big mistake.
Yeah, so he's
and it made him look quite weak, honestly.
He's interim leader, isn't he, while they kind of figure out who's going to run that.
Yeah.
He's a sort of interim boss of it.
I didn't take that very well.
Yeah.
And I don't think it gave a great impression. I'm not saying the whole thing was a disaster.
Makes it look a bit hurried, doesn't it? As opposed to like he's just I don't know. The choreography is like he wants it to coincide with his capital markets day, but within the company they weren't ready for the move. What they would rather have done is have a more orderly succession and announced.
I suppose to some extent you think I am in a hurry. It's like we want to fix this.
Okay, we haven't got time to.
You could argue it that way as well. I mean, I think on the personnel point though, if that was the thought, and he was fairly direct, probably a little naively, I think, because he'd only been there for a short time, and if that was the case, the CFO's got to be on the block, right? Because at times he was saying, we've reported badly. We haven't been very consistent with our numbers. He went through that a lot of point. We've got to be more reliable for your modelling, blah, blah, blah. With the CFO right next to him, and it just wasn't a good look for the CFO either, that sort of messaging. It's definitely who's been around a while. I wouldn't mind betting that, he didn't really like that. You could you almost see it, a little bit in the he's an impassive fin, right? You can't but a kind
Marco
of minor,
Wirren is called.
Yeah, minor twitch to the eyebrow.
That's enough.
At that point.
Yeah.
And I think the team overall they presented was quite interesting as well. I mean,
was his new mate there?
It's become
the
less
AI person, the woman.
Pallavi was there, but it's sort of with her and with David Hurd now because he replaced Federico Guillen, who was a Spanish boss of network infrastructure.
That's a big changing of the guard, isn't it?
It's quite a big changing, but it's also kind of like, obviously Federico wasn't finished, but it's kind of taking out the Finns were becoming sort of less prominent. They've got a sort of non-Finnish CEO who's also running mobile at the moment. Maybe we'll get someone who's not finished running the mobile bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see an American in charge of it because everybody seems to think it should be more of an American company for some reason.
Reminds me a bit of when Stephen Elop took over back in the day.
Yeah.
There was a changing of the
There's a
guard.
little bit of that, and that was pretty much a disaster by any. I don't think this is going to be such a disaster.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't because I don't think Elop was a great CEO. But he oversaw the sale of the handset division to Microsoft, I think. Was it in that order? I can't remember the precise choreography. He did.
Yeah, he was the burning platform guy.
And at the time, that was like, what the fuck? Nokia getting out of handsets. They're synonymous with handsets. But then Microsoft ended up writing down the entire value of that acquisition. So you'd have to say that move was good for Nokia shareholders.
Well, you could say it was a disaster. We're going into a totally
That's
different
fine. Tangents
era,
are good as well.
Yeah.
You could say it's a massive disaster as well. You went from number one in handsets to going bust.
Yeah.
In hardly any time at all.
I don't really blame Nokia for that, though. I think it was just the victim of events. Basically, it was quite clear.
The Symbian platform was a burning platform. It wasn't fit for future.
Yes,
but
I agree.
They had an option, right? They took the Microsoft money. Imagine if Nokia had gone Android at that point. They could have been Samsung today or something like that. It was a bad decision that went disastrously wrong.
Yeah. Well,
I don't see any other interpretation for it.
Well, if you give me fucking half a chance, I'll give you one. No, I think that's all valid. The alternative interpretation, I'd say, it obviously didn't go well, but from where they were, you're right. Their only real alternative. They tried going with Windows Mobile, which is obviously a very bad move, and that was shit. And Microsoft hadn't got its ducks in a row because they were still trying to charge software license fees at a time when Android was being given away for free and it was good.
I had a few Windows phones. They're good phones. It's a good OS.
Yeah.
As far as it went.
It was all right. I don't think it was amazing, but it had its moments and it had a different aesthetic and all that sort of thing. But the business model for it was flawed. That they were, Google already beaten them to a punch when you've got a perfectly good competitor to iOS being available for free. Why the fuck would you pay for one? But yeah, they stuck with Symbian for too long. That was definitely a big mistake.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
But I think if they'd moved to Android, if you look at the kind of margins Samsung makes on its Android phones, they're very small. It was also still obsessed with trying to sell extra services, which Samsung has tried and failed to do. So I think you're right. I don't disagree with your assessment. I think they would have ended up as a competitor to Samsung, but I don't think that's necessarily a very good outcome. Where we might slightly differ.
I think there's some.
I don't think this is quite like that.
In that.
Anyway.
No, anyway, yeah. So
that
was a tangent,
and I think this is all quite different.
But back to Hotard, which is why we went on that tangent.
Because I think we're going to go into the details a bit more, but just on the sort of financial stuff, like the big increase in operating profit is. He'd come in, I think one of the first things he did, because I remember being on a call with him about this, was this, he's almost returning it to where it was before the previous CEO, Pekka Lundmark. You had Rajiv Suri there with this message about end-to-end
That's right.
capability.
And you picked up on that when we were in Finland as well, didn't you?
Yeah, he's come in and he's not used end-to-end, but he certainly said they need to sort of have more joined-up thinking, and there's an opportunity to go out and appeal to customers who might be buying their core stuff and sell them RAN as well, or transport stuff, and he's much more into that idea than it seemed Pekka Lundmark was, who kind of just sort of almost thought it wasn't how customers buy. So it's quite a big change. But I think related to that, what Lundmark had done is put all those 4 business groups into they were very siloed under him. Like each one had its own communications team and its own sort of legal and all these different functions. And one thing Hotard was saying on a press call a few months ago was that he wanted to take those functions out and put them and make them more into a platform that would serve all the different business groups, which is obviously sounds like that's an opportunity for job cuts, but he sort of downplayed that. I mean, the cost savings are obviously going to be made easier by the fact that you're merging 3 units now and you've got 2 instead of 1, and they're kind of not saying that there's a new kind of program of job cuts. They're very much presenting it as a continuation of what Lundmark had said he was doing. So he'd come in. But
2 of your stories, sorry for interrupting, 2 of your stories this week refer to Nokia job cuts.
Yeah, no, I'm saying they're not presenting it as a new round of job cuts. They're saying it's a continuation of what Lundmark had put there in 2023.
All right.
So if you remember, 2 years ago, he'd said we need to cut between 9,000 and 14,000 jobs. And then you got the impression that they sort of were giving off the impression they were kind of done with it. I remember asking Lundmark about this. It was we're probably going to be at the lower end of that, because you obviously you don't want to overcut and not have the ability to do what you need to do. They've now swung to saying it's going to be 14,000. So it's the upper end, and they're at the kind of 9,000 point, which means there's 5,000 left to go. That was the message.
Right, I hear you.
And apparently 2,500 people. It's quite interesting because it coincided with actually some job cuts being announced they weren't announced. I sort of got wind of it in France this week.
That's right. Yeah, that's your other job cut story I saw.
There's 2,500 people who've been told. There's still another 2,500 people to tell. But the figure now for what they're going to end up as in headcount is 70,000. And you go back to 2018, they had 103,000. So in a few years, it's gone down a lot. And then, so this all sort of feeds into
a few acquisitions.
With a few acquisitions, so that's the important thing. Is Infinera is excluded from all this, and what that means, I don't know. I think Infinera had about 3,000 people at the time of the takeover, but that's obviously going to boost the number of people that they employ as well a little bit. But the idea is all this sort of feeds into the operating profit boost that they're getting. And then there's the kind of bigger, which Gabe will probably want to talk about quite a bit, the kind of what they're doing operationally on the mobile network side, which is this stuff that, I've probably been going on about this ad nauseum, but this whole kind of, we're going to lean more on general purpose silicon and move away from custom,
but it's central.
Which is the whole Nvidia thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bringing those groups together. But the other thing, by the way, is there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been taken out and that they've put in this sort of unwanted pile, which I think was collective sales is 900 million in a year, but it was losing 100 million in operating losses. So it's
collective sales. Oh, the collective sales of these unwanted bits.
So
sorry,
it's 4 or 5 bits. It's fixed wireless CPE stuff. It's some of the private 5G stuff they do, but not all of it. It's the kind of MXIE.
So I think that the other thing about the event was I think the communication wasn't as good as it could have been, because on the one hand, you're talking about this trying to boost operating. It's not clear. Even the sort of targets they were setting and things were a bit muddled, and the stock is down 10% on the week.
Yes.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah, I can confirm that. I just had a look. Yeah, it's down.
One of my Omdia colleagues who's got a background as a CFA from that area was chatting with him earlier in the week. He's he's basically, what it looks like is this dropped that much because they've essentially dropped their revenue and profit. Their expectations they've set are lower than what the market had been previously anticipating, kind of thing. And his speculation is, he's done that as he's come in early. It's his first capital markets day. From here, if he sets it kind of achievable, he can kind of exceed. So
it's a bit like a politician. Get the bad news out early.
Bit of expectation.
They were almost criticised in the room, I think, with the equity analysts that were there for being quite conservative. So the NI bit, network infrastructure, which is their growth business, by the way. That's the thing they're presenting as a growth business. And the whole story there has been optical's a great area to be in because there's loads of money going into that to do with the construction of AI data centers. Ethernet's a great business to be in because it's moving towards that for the fabric from like InfiniBand, which is the sort of Nvidia stuff because people want something that's more standardized. It's a huge growth opportunity. And then they give this, the compound annual growth rate for sales at network infrastructure is like 6 to 8% from 2025 to 2028. And they're like a bunch of analysts just saying it seems quite low when one of your competitors, which I'm guessing is probably Ciena, is targeting something quite significantly higher. And then they didn't provide a sales outlook for mobile infrastructure, but they did show a chart where he had like the addressable market figure for what like, it wasn't just RAN, it was like services as well. So it was kind of bigger than Omdia's numbers. But between 2025 and 2028, it was like unchanged. So the only way they're going to grow sales at that is to take market share. Maybe there's an opportunity. He did talk a bit about Huawei. He quite likes having a go at Huawei compared with other.
Yeah, and we got that from Finland.
Yeah, but he was even more aggressive on the. I was really surprised. Like the analyst session, he really kind of like was quite outspoken and said there's like.
That's obviously a strategy.
2 to 2.5 billion to potentially win in Europe from something like on the high side.
I mean, one thing I did like about it, and there's more than one thing, but it sound pretty negative, don't we? I guess. I mean.
Overall, it was sounding negative. I know you like to try and be positive.
Overall, it wasn't the best, but it had some very interesting parts to it. And one thing I really liked was by creating this mobile infrastructure unit, you know, apart from the fact that they keep reorganizing and all the churn that's associated with it, which, as we all know, is a pain in the ass for everybody involved. Apart from that, I think it makes a lot of sense to put, you know, your mobile network technologies and assets in one group, because the fact that they had them split off, RAN in one group and then core over there in a kind of a weird division never really made a lot of sense to me.
What I don't get is
I like what they've done. I also like that Hotard came out early in his tenure actually and said mobile is key to us.
Yep.
We're keeping it and we're going to, you know, do a good job with it. So at least I think even on the event this week he took, which will be last week by the time people are watching this, I guess. He took us, you know, responsibility for fixing it and improving it and so forth. So there's a lot to like about it. And I think having a lot of your mobile products, technologies together in one group makes you know a load more sense to me. I think.
Do you think it, because that like core and RAN stuff has been separated for quite a long time, and it's sort of separated at Ericsson as well, isn't it? So do you think it would make sense for them to bring it together?
It's a little bit different. I've been thinking about that because I think one of the problems is the cloud and network services group a bit kind of disparate to be, you know, there wasn't really, you couldn't quite figure out what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Why they've got rid of it, presumably. In Ericsson, it's a little different though, because they do it that way. They have their what do they call it? Cloud.
It's almost the same name.
Yeah,
but it's got the BSS and OSS stuff in it as well, hasn't it?
But it's a bit of a different play because Ericsson itself is pretty much fully mobile focused, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, you can see why they do it that way a little bit more. You know, I think they're, you know, they're bigger in RAN, they're bigger in core as well. They even put in like their SMO, their RAN automation in that group.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, I think when you get into the actual mechanics of it, it's a different sort of setup.
Right.
Well, I find the restructuring thing, like going back to Kieran's story in the FT, where you both queried his headline, which is Nokia splits AI business into separate units.
I didn't query it. I just think it's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, all right. Fucking nitpicking. I mean, that's a query, isn't it? I would say, and I'm not disagreeing, but I think I'm going to guess, and I just quickly skimming some of his opening paragraphs. His interpretation was that they're now positioning.
I didn't know he'd written it, by the way. I just saw the FT story, and I just thought the headline was wrong.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, look, you know, we'd say it to his face if we meet him at a press thing. It's all fair in love and journalism. And the reason I'm queuing this up is not to agree or disagree with your assessment or defend or attack Kieran or the FT, is just to say that he seems to be characterising that whole bit as AI. That whole bit that is the optical and the fixed line and the IP and all that sort of thing.
Which is just weird because most of the AI talk at the event was actually about the mobile infrastructure bit. In fact, David Hurd got criticised for not mentioning Nvidia once in his talk. He was in the Q&A going, "Oh yeah, I didn't mention Nvidia."
Yeah, but there's a lot of confusion. Again, it wasn't well communicated. There was a lot of confusion about all of that.
Well, and the fact that people have taken away such different things adds to.
To be fair to the FT guy, he probably put it out in like 10 minutes.
He did put it out in 10 minutes. I think it came out immediately after the announcement.
And I think the main point of the event from Nokia's point of view, as I understood it, was to position that they've got a group, a unit, which is network infrastructure, that is growing fast and it's doing,
well, it's not growing fast enough.
Nothing is ever enough, is it?
Growth.
But it's doing well in data center, right?
Yeah.
An AI data center. So, they've got some good technologies there.
I mean,
that's what they wanted to position, that they've got this division that's like got some legs on it, and they've got some big wins, design wins with the big hyperscalers, doing really well with the neo clouds.
Yeah.
So they've got a good story.
Scale stuff and the Infinera story, and which seems to be, if we read into the appointment of the Infinera guy as taking over from Federico, a lot of the Infinera narrative that I was getting was that this is really well positioned to capitalise on the AI boom for the data centre interconnects and all that.
It's quite an old story, that, and the Capital Markets Day was not really about that. It wasn't the new side of the. I mean, whether it was the most interesting presentation or not, it was like this bit takes care of itself, and that's our growth engine. Let's fix the rest of Nokia, sort of thing. Was my kind of takeaway.
Fair enough.
And
you'd have had a better story if you'd have focused on your positives a bit more, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But then maybe because people were definitely curious as to why the growth projection's only 6 to 8%. I mean, I didn't watch David Hurd's presentation. I need to go back and watch it at some point. And I do think he said some things about the fixed side of it being slower than obviously optical and IP are probably the engines, and there's the fixed side of things.
Well, there's a lot in that group, isn't there? Like
there's a lot in that group.
There's PON access as well as data center switching. So it's and
I think the other challenge they've had with that group is it's a merger, obviously. So those are always complicated because there's some overlap, and there's how you address that, and that's potentially what sort of tripped Nokia up a little bit in mobile with the whole Alcatel-Lucent thing. I think bringing together those two sort of portfolios was one of the reasons it was given to me why things had sort of gone wrong a little bit in the early days of 5G.
He did have a good talk though, and I think one thing that stood out to me when you look at the team they had, he was the only one, CFO aside. I mean, that's a slightly different. He's the only one who really, from what you would call a proper networking, definitely telco background. And he seemed a lot more comfortable in his skin with it. Obviously he's doing well as well. That helps. There seemed to be. I mean, Hotard himself, the new CTO,
Pallavi.
Pallavi. Who else was there?
It was Marco Wurin, Pallavi, Hotard, David Hurd. I think that's Raghav.
Yeah. Okay, Raghav.
So Raghav Sahgal, who I talk to every now and again, but he was the head of cloud and network services, and with that obviously being sort of wrapped into mobile, you were thinking, well, where's he going to go? He's now like chief customer officer or something I think.
Like that,
but he's still there. I mean, Hotard's talk about, I think we're going to get into the weeds on this in a bit, but his whole talk about being more software centric in networks, mobile networks, and he was like using what Raghav had done as a comparison almost. Wasn't it great that we didn't do our own kind of, we gave up doing work on our own cloud infrastructure stuff because we knew we couldn't compete against the hyperscalers, and we had this great partnership with Red Hat, but we've now got that ability.
I think he banked that a bit hard for
he probably did
for what the credits really. I mean that division has had a very tough period, and all right, now the last year or two it's had a nice kind of recovery run, but I mean you wouldn't have been making that point 2 years ago, certainly. And he's trying to parlay that now into what they're going to do in RAN strategy with potentially, again, not very clear. But I think what they're really trying to say with this.
I think some of it's like almost a religious thing for him, rather than looking at the financial performance necessarily of what Raghav has done. It almost seems like he just thinks that's the way that it makes sense to go.
Well, also like sometimes whether the product performance, and what the customers want.
Yeah,
they want a lot of that in there. I mean, I know it's a finance event, but ultimately, customers buy your products right, and they've got to like them, and they've got to be good, and all of that. And it just didn't really hit too well on that front either.
One thing I didn't. I mean, on the financial stuff, like talking about network infrastructure.
Just to add, though, Nokia's got some amazing products. It's a terrific company.
Your critique is how it's communicated, not about the substance of its offering.
It's a deep tech company, and it's got amazing.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to put a pin in that because I've got some thoughts on the back of your addition there. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were going to talk about the products anyway in a bit. But okay. I was just saying, just to maybe tie up the financial stuff. I think the network infrastructure side of things, which has got this quite low sales projection. I think the other challenge for them is, as I was saying, that the kind of merger raises issues in terms of bringing those units together, and then they still feel like they're kind of behind Ciena in certain areas. I think there's been this increase in R&D spending.
Ciena's on an amazing run, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm fucking ignorant about Ciena.
Well, he's the oldest serving
Ciena's
CEO.
the main optical one.
Is he still CEO? Gary Smith? Longest running in the industry by miles.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on absolute...
So that was
they're on a long...
Are they benefiting from the AI boom as well?
They're benefiting from everything they're in. I mean, they're
the optical market leader outside. If you ignore Huawei and take them out of the picture, they're the kind of leader. And that was given because Pekka Lundmark was CEO when that deal was announced. That was sort of given as his rationale for doing it, that they needed bulk to strengthen up and they needed the kind of expertise that Infinera had. But even after this deal, they're putting quite a lot into R&D to try and improve the product portfolio against Ciena, and that's affecting margins. So that network infrastructure bit, even though it's got this, for a start, it's got a fairly low sales outlook, and it's not as profitable as you probably want it to be at the moment because they're spending more on R&D. And then the other thing, like just going back to that, bringing the other three businesses together, because you were saying the core and the RAN stuff, it makes sense to do that. I didn't
makes
really.
Sense to me.
The thing I'm still a little confused about is this putting like Nokia Technologies into that unit, which obviously makes it look a lot more profitable because it's almost pure profit. But for a minute I was thinking, are they going to use technology profits to sort of fund like activities within? But the trouble with doing that then is that then you hurt your target of, the whole point of doing it is to have a more cash generative, profitable unit. If you start chewing into profits to sort of fund R&D, then that target that they've got, that operating profit target, is going to get hurt, and they're going to get kind of penalised for it.
They're going to end up. I suspect they're going to end up having to break out the profitability, the technologies, the patent revenue.
Well, people are going to ask the question
because everyone's going to be out.
Yeah.
But where it does make sense, though, is that all of these patents they've got and all of this massive high margin revenue, it only looks that way because the people who invented it are in the product and technology teams on the other side. So in a way, most of these patents, I mean, I had a little chart showing large majority of it's from devices, so phones, and it's to do with 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G radio, a little bit in cars, but it's because of their involvement in 3GPP, it's because of their R&D in these other divisions that they've got this super profitable group.
It is, but I always thought
they've got none of the development cost.
No, they haven't. But isn't that the attraction of just having it as a standalone? It's just a big bunch of lawyers and sales guys who go out and deal with this stuff, and then you've got these massive margins on it. I still don't quite get the putting it back in with.
I suppose, like you say,
I don't really get it.
It makes it look a little.
It makes it look better,
yeah.
and maybe it takes the pressure off because, all right, people are going to ask the question. I know they are, and even if they don't get a straight answer, they can work it out.
That group that hasn't got all the profits is bearing the cost of developing the technologies to some extent.
It is.
So I think that's
again, this seems like
it's a bit of financial engineering to me, though. It's like
a little bit of creative accounting. I can
go that far, but
well, I will. God, he's really picking my stuff to pieces there, isn't it? I have a couple of days off.
Any of your stuff to pieces.
He thinks he's fucking.
I think because sometimes creative accounting is considered synonym for sort of
for cooking the books.
Fraud.
For fraud, which I'm not suggesting. Ian, throwing me under the bus for Nokia's lawyers. No, I'm only joking. I'm just fucking with you, mate. Can I? As soon as we got that break, actually, there's a press release that's just come in from Nokia. Right. Which is interesting. It's sort of segue, and I'm not saying we're finished with that segment before we start talking about the more Nvidia-ish stuff, which I know we're going to. But this press release from Nokia is headlined, Nokia plans to expand US investment by $4 billion in R&D and manufacturing for AI-ready network connectivity. But then you get into it, and it reminds me a little bit about when the Nvidia announcement was made. It was really, I've thought, incongruous, banging on by Nvidia, talking about how this is going to sort America out. It's very America, it's very MAGA, and all that sort of thing. And then you look at the opening line of this press release, once you get below the bullets, it says, Dallas, Texas, Nokia, in collaboration with the Trump administration, announced today plans. And there's lots and lots of stuff, which is rah, rah, America, waving the fucking flag and all that sort of thing. And I just think it's interesting. This is spontaneous. This has literally come in as we're recording. But it's interesting what we were talking about with Justin Hotard and the changing of the guard and a reduction of the role of some of the Finnish lifers and all that sort of thing. And press releases like this, I've only just read it. I could be reading too much into it, but that feels like another massive pivot towards the US that already happened with Hotard's appointment and then with the Nvidia investment. So I think there's interesting stuff going on there.
It is interesting. I'd leave the sort of politics side of it apart because I don't really know too much about that. But if you're in this high-end, super advanced networking, high technology networking, the US is the place to be, and it always has been through my whole career.
Yeah.
So,
I think a lot of that
makes sense.
This is what David heard, and
I think a lot of that's connected with the Infinera fabs as well.
In that sense, it's really worth. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah, a lot of that's like investment into indium phosphide and stuff, which is what David Hurd does.
All right, fair enough.
But I agree with you. I don't think you're wrong. I mean, there is a very strong emphasis, like throughout, I think, on this sort of
just lots of rah-rah America.
Because these companies are spending vast amounts, right? I mean,
well,
even if the networking stuff they're spending with Nokia is not huge, it's still got growth in it, whereas all their traditional customers are flatlining.
Yeah, and then there's I know politics isn't necessarily our core competence, but geopolitics finds its way into the telecom sector, and it has in some ways more than ever in Trump Mark II because of all the tariffs and all this stuff about how he's being especially forceful about insisting that people invest in the US and sort of and then punishing through tariffs places that export into the US rather than make the stuff there.
Yeah, if we get around to the BT thing that I went to on over time, they had a lot of emphasis.
Well, we're better now, aren't we?
They had to put a lot of emphasis on sovereignty.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's an interesting. Okay. Well, so we'll put a pin in that. I won't go off on that tangent, but but before. I've just got some thoughts about the restructure, again, from my very uninformed point of view, because I didn't write about it this week, and I haven't been in the thick of it, and I didn't listen in on any of the briefings that you two did. But there maybe my sort of more ad hoc, uninformed perspective adds some value. Let's find out. I just think it is interesting how you've characterised that that unit that's cobbling together a bunch of stuff, some of which, as Gabe has said, is intuitive, like the core stuff with the RAN stuff, that all makes sense. That's all mobile at the end of the day. And then, it will be interesting to see what the accounting implications of putting the IP thing is, because, it's a standalone thing. It's nearly all profit because it's historical R&D rather than the ton of R&D they're doing now.
I mean, just to compare it to Ericsson, they do have licensing in the bits, but they break it out. There's a line underneath in the report, so you can see in the sort of RAN, I don't call it RAN, they call it mobile networks or whatever, but the mobile networks business group, there's a bit this much from licensing. So it is with those groups. So it's not like other people aren't doing it. It's just having had this sort of standalone, very profitable business for ages, to bring it back in just seems curious. And,
so I guess that's a question I want to ask. You two might have already addressed this already, but I'm going to ask it again. So we've done this rejigging, and I still want to talk about Tommy Wheater as well. It doesn't look like it was communicated in an especially coherent way, because you two both seem to still be scratching your heads about the underlying rationale or what the big vision is. But have I interpreted it correctly in terms of the big picture?
The rationale's clear.
Well,
I don't think that's the issue.
What is the thing that you think could be communicated better?
The sort of mechanics of it and what's actually happening, and I
mean, the broad rationale is cuts. Yeah, the broad rationale is cuts to boost profits.
Okay.
It wasn't my interpretation, but I haven't paid as much attention to that as Ian either.
Yeah,
I've seen the reports from like Germany and and France and everything.
But didn't you say the cuts were already baked in?
Well, as I say, there was a range that was given by Lundmark.
Right. So this is at
which
the
they've
upper end.
maintained.
Yeah.
They still haven't got rid of. So it gives you a lot of flexibility within that to then justify it as part of a previous program. The fact that he's come in and done this stuff early on to say we don't need functions attached to each business group, the fact that you're bringing 3 business groups together, the fact that you're then saying there's still 5,000 to go.
Move by itself. Isn't it?
The fact that, I mean, this is the bit, the cut side of things that we haven't talked about yet, which gets into that kind of product area, and maybe there's an opportunity to talk about Tommy Wito there, but the whole, we're going to save money by not investing as much in custom silicon anymore. We can reallocate into...
Yes, I saw you had an exchange on LinkedIn about that stuff. With the custom silicon versus COTS.
Yeah. So I mean, that's been a huge story for ages anyway. That ties in, and I think he said that himself, that it ties in with the whole virtual RAN, cloud RAN piece. But that, you know, the message there is obviously that they're expecting. I mean, the problem with the mobile networks unit, which is not profitable, or hasn't been over the first 9 months, having lost a couple of very big deals in what's probably the most profitable market in the world, they've only really got T-Mobile left there. They're not covering their cost of capital. It's a stagnant market, or has been. How do you improve the outlook there? And the vision that he's obviously got is this AI RAN stuff that Nvidia's going on about, which he's very much sort of seeing as a kind of successor to the whole like virtual RAN, cloud RAN story that we need to kind of like piggyback on a bigger sort of, a bigger kind of silicon maker that's doing it for lots of other things, like get into the sort of general purpose story. It frees us up to put more money into software. And we can save some money that way, and we can sort of reallocate what we were spending on purpose built. That's very much part of the story, and that would help certainly to sort of, if it works out, to improve the margin position. But it's quite I mean, this is the thing, is like I think we talked about this before when the Nvidia deal was done. Are they making a full-on punt on going into Nvidia's GPUs?
Feels like they are.
It does feel like they are. I mean, I thought before the Capital Markets Day, and a couple of conversations I've had recently with people, that they were sort of like, not like they had a kind of twin track strategy maybe, and they tried to sort of downplay
they're hedging their position a bit more.
We've got software that we can use on, we've got like commonalities that we can realise.
I agree with you, high risk. That's one of my notes here.
Yeah.
High risk.
So go ahead, mate.
Because again though, they hinted at that, but it weren't clear,
Yeah.
And so what are we supposed to think? We can just speculate effectively. And that's maybe
what we're paid for, mate.
I mean, it was clear to the extent of saying we're leaving behind legacy hardware, and there was a move away from legacy proprietary to general purpose. It was very much.
It's okay. We're speculating as pundits essentially. What if you are BT, who's just signed that big contract with them, or Telecom Italia, big breakthrough contracts? Have I just signed a contract with a platform that's on the way out?
Yes,
I might have done by the sound of this, or not, And so this is where it's high risk, because what are the customers of these products that keep your business running? What are they, what's going to be their thought on it?
Not to mention there's not a huge amount of buy-in for the AI.
Well, I was going to say it's high risk on several levels. It's high risk in the way that Gabe just articulated. And as you say, I suppose there's some Venn diagram overlap between that and what you were just saying, Ian, which is that do they want it?
You were saying this, that Fuse, that the elephant in the room was the sort of Nokia Nvidia did, and a lot of the people were talking at Fuse on the background about AI RAN and GPUs. I remember having various conversations with people who were in that market, like, does it make sense to put these in base stations? And,
it felt that topic was never that far away from a conversation where we're...
Yeah.
But there's loads to say on this. It is very interesting, and it's a whole...
Well, I was going to ask you, what did you get to? I wanted to ask you about your assessment of this whole AI RAN thing. What do you make of it? Just your thoughts as an analyst of this stuff.
Yes, AI is infusing every aspect of the RAN, and it will over the next whatever years for sure. There's lots of ways of implementing it. There's lots of different definitions. It's not a good definition. But don't belabor it too long.
With and on and fucking about with,
which is
and all that
exactly, and it's too confusing. I actually prefer the Ericsson definition, albeit.
What is the Ericsson definition? I'm not even sure.
Well, they have.
That's exactly
AI,
another thing.
This gets a bit tedious, but
it's all right, man. That's why you're here, Gabe. Only joking. God bless.
You can look it up. I guess what I wanted to say though is a little bit in in contradiction in some ways to what you're hearing from different operators. And I've heard it as well, GPUs too expensive, too power, they're not right for the application. That might be the case now, but what's it going to be in a few years?
Yeah.
And this isn't, I know I've got a contact in one of the server vendors, the Taiwanese server, one of those
Supermicro or
one of those types of companies.
No, they're
American,
one of the more obscure ones.
And they've made an absolute massive killing selling Nvidia servers into data centers for AI factories.
I imagine so.
Their charts are just.
And we should note that Nvidia's quarterlies this week were still pretty decent, weren't they?
Yeah, and this guy, he reckons, don't underestimate where it's going, because he says, it's a bit more expensive at the moment, but not that much more expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
And with the volumes, with the new products, etc., et it can come down and be price competitive in not too long of a period.
They're very keen to sort of, whenever you talk to Nvidia about this, and the last time I did was when they did the Nokia Nvidia announcement, and I was on a call with Ronnie Vasishta and Pallavi actually. Mm-hmm. And he was very keen to sort of address this cost issue, because one of the interesting things that I thought Justin said was their whole initial view on the using GPUs as part of the RAN is not about AI and RAN.
Exactly.
It's about AI for RAN.
It was very well said as well.
Yeah.
Because it's essential that if they're going to do this, the basic product works.
Has to be economical. So not using them for inferencing. Not just using them.
So
for
it's got to be good for the RAN in and of itself.
Yeah. And Ronnie was very keen to sort of go, it actually isn't more expensive. But the problem is, you need to sort of see, you need to hear like the proper metrics and stats and sort of see some kind of numbers. And the guys who were involved in doing all this, like Gabe, is obviously more than
they did give some decent. We had an analyst briefing, I think the week after or the week of that GTC in the US where it was announced. They never give enough, right? That's the thing in these things. So you've got to ferret around a bit. I don't think like the capacity numbers for this. What's it called? The Arc Pro. Are good, right? I've got the numbers somewhere. It's like 20 cells of 100 megahertz.
Right.
Too good, almost. So there's a chance to scale it down and do some different things with like CRANs and DRANs and all that sort of stuff. But that's just one product now, right? If you look at, and this is the whole point really, how fast NVIDIA performance density is going up, which means you can get more and more performance on a smaller, cheaper unit as well. It's in the kind of sweet spot of the curve, isn't it? So in a way, NVIDIA's kind of like the new Intel.
Yeah.
And
very much.
What they've done with Nokia to some extent, probably hate me for saying this.
You can see Intel inside.
No, I wasn't going to say that. So NVIDIA's had big plans.
Like the Intel and Ericsson deal.
Not even.
we keep second guessing what he's going to say. We should just let you finish, Gabe.
So Nvidia have had this big play on RAN for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
They're committed to it. Jensen Huang himself likes the idea that it was going to be 5G, but now it's going to be 6G, runs on their platforms. And, there's quite a bit to get into that. What became pretty clear, and I saw it in GTC Paris where I went, they had the demo. They've done a good demo system. And it's a good system, right? But it's not like a production level software features capabilities. It became clear they needed the professionals, as it were, the experts in RAN to come in and be on their platforms. And they've had dalliances with Ericsson previously. And so in a sense, what this is the kind of Intel seeds the market, and it's kind of historically it's incentivized companies to use its products. So they've essentially done that with Nokia, given it heavy incentive to get onto their product line, basically. And so I think NVIDIA needed that to make its ambitions there kind of happen. So they bought their way in, essentially. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
There's been a lot of seeding of markets by NVIDIA.
Yeah. And so that at the same time, this is more of a side issue. What they've also done, their own development, their aerial software stack and everything that goes with it, they've open sourced. Yeah. Which I think is very interesting. There's not, there's open what's it called? OSA, Open Source Software Alliance or something like that for RAN already, but it's not that much. And, that's not It's not something
Nvidia is very good at doing that software side of things as well.
but it's not something that so far has ever been that successful because operators don't want it. But I think it's still very interesting. The potential is kind of,
Yeah.
if you project out a long way, it's a nice move. I strongly encourage it. I've noticed they've got their 6G Developer Day in December as well. They've spent a lot of time
6G Developer Day.
Yeah, which is
Steady.
coding 6G for their platforms.
I don't like. I agree with everything you're saying, except for the bit about there's nothing wrong with that, with them sort of buying their way into Nokia, because I feel this is a part of like the bigger concerns about Nvidia, and this is the kind of thing that I partly wrote about today. But these people talking about AI bubble, Nvidia sort of taking huge stakes in CoreWeave, in what's the other one? Obviously, Sam Altman.
OpenAI.
No, I agree with you.
It's like, I mean, I think I speculated in the thing I wrote today about, I wouldn't, it's not that far-fetched now to think that when it comes to someone trying to deploy this as an early stage thing, you could see Nvidia kind of putting up some of the money maybe for T-Mobile US even to do it, or SoftBank to actually deploy it if they've gone as far as they have. And
to say nothing wrong with that, I guess what I meant to say was, because I think your concerns are sort of, right-ish, but there's nothing unusual in it, I guess is what I meant, because it's a common sort of business practice.
It is common, although the current wave of it, and there's tons of speculation about the AI bubble, and it's becoming more and more people are sort of calling it a bubble, I've noticed, whereas people would sort of tiptoe.
Jensen,
of course
definitely
not
a bubble.
Of course not, and not Sam Altman, and not, funnily enough, the people who have got the most invested in the bubble continuing to inflate, but but more objective people are calling it a bubble more and more. Whether or not it is, we won't know until it bursts, and we don't know how long it can keep
Well, I
inflating.
think everybody thinks it's a bubble except for the people with a vested interest in it.
Well, indeed.
Well, this is the latest thing, though, isn't it? It's like they're not even not saying it's a bubble.
Yeah.
They're saying it is, and what's the fucking problem with that?
It's like,
Yeah,
at least when
exactly.
it bursts, we're going to have loads of data centers out of it.
Hotard said that himself, more or less,
Yeah,
when he was asked.
that's
It wasn't me that asked the question. It was Gillian at Bloomberg, but she sort of went on an earnings call recently. What do you think about all this sort of stuff about an AI bubble? And he went. I think I quoted him today, but he sort of said something like, "Well, yeah, but then Cisco led the internet sort of era for years afterwards," and it's like it's almost an acknowledgement that it will go down, but then we need to be in a position to be one of the kind of companies that recovers quickly afterwards, and we can get ahead of it by doing this thing with Nvidia. But if it's such a great idea, this is one of my questions. If it's such a great idea to do AI RAN the Nvidia way, and Ericsson would have a different strategy at the moment, then why aren't Ericsson and Samsung doing the same thing that Nokia is?
Samsung is quite an interesting case because there was a lot of announcements out in Korea as well quite recently, and it hasn't been quite as high profile or clear, but more or less, I could easily get this a little bit wrong, but Samsung has kind of, I don't think they've been 100% explicit that they're never going to do another baseband SoC again.
Yeah,
but
they're kind of moving that way.
Strongly moving that way, and they've sort of made that choice and decision sooner than Nokia, I think.
Yeah. But they're very much based around Intel, aren't they, at the moment?
Currently,
and
but they've been
CPUs.
making a lot of. They are, and Intel's, still a good story in its own way, depending on how you look at these things, isn't it? But
I think technologically they look a lot better than they did a couple of years
Samsung's
ago.
definitely been dropping in that they are portable.
Yeah.
Whether it's AMD or Nvidia as well, and they've been trying to kind of seed that into quite a lot of briefings.
They are, but I think when they're talking about the portability, they're very much sort of, as I understand it from conversations with them, it's very much about doing an AMD thing maybe initially, but then taking advantage of like the Grace part of what Nvidia did, the CPU part of what Nvidia does, and not using the GPU. To move it onto CUDA requires like something else, as I understand it, software-wise. It's quite a big pivot then. And for Ericsson as well, it's like they're very much based around, their whole cloud RAN strategy is obviously very much based around a similar thing to Samsung. Really, it's like leaning on CPU capabilities, and if you did something like Nokia's doing, it would be quite a big change for them. And so it has big implications, I think, for two of them strategy-wise. And what
it does.
thinking.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It does have big implications.
And then if they all went that way, it's like, I don't know if it's like, because the thing for me for ages about Cloud RAN has always been, there's only really been Intel, even though there's been all this talk about AMD and like ARM-based alternatives.
And it didn't really take off with it.
It hasn't really it's not taken off, but it's in a better position. I've like being accused of like being really critical of virtual and cloud RAM, but I think it's in a better position than it was a few years ago. You got things like Granite Rapids that looks like a really good platform, and Samsung is like the whole thing that they're doing with Verizon is like a vRAN,
okay,
which is a major network, obviously in big urban areas. But to have only Intel as an option, like even a really big Intel advocate like Bernard Bureau, who I chatted to in Dublin from TELUS, was like, it'd be nice to have another option in the market. There's always been this feeling that they need to have someone coming through. And that's, again, a kind of concern about Nvidia is this platform that everybody moves to in the future. It's that kind of dependency thing. This is the whole geopolitics and the sovereignty and the like diversity is like you've got that kind of choke point there of only one sort of big monstrous chip maker that the whole world seems to be moving towards.
Especially if some of those markets are only catalyzed by an injection of cash from that company.
Yeah.
Well, that's I guess they're thinking that they're catalysing it afterwards. They're going to be charging for it, as it were.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the big. So, Ian referred to the story he'd written today. I like the headline. It says, Nvidia is eating the world and telecom is part of the meal.
Yeah, I nicked that from someone.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, that's very honest of you. I was giving you credit. I withdraw that credit.
You know who it well, it was a conversation in a pub.
Right.
And I went, I'm going to use that in a headline.
I can't remember now. Was it?
Yeah,
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Fine.
I think you're allowed.
You've kind of given the game away, haven't you?
I think you're allowed to take pub talk. And
you're allowed to take pub. I said I'm going to use that in a headline, and he went, "Oh, right."
Yeah. Well, there we are. I hope you appreciate it, anonymous provider of headlines.
Yeah.
But let me just quickly say, Gabe, and I'll defer to you. This is also my concern. I've articulated it in previous podcasts when we've been talking about this. When you get into bed with someone as big and powerful and cash rich as Nvidia, and then you take $1 billion of their money, which is just fucking pocket change for them, but is a big deal for your company. These people.
Or was it Jeff Hollingworth put it? As he had a good analogy, didn't he, in LinkedIn? Jeff at Rakuten.
What did he say?
Well, it's like someone who's got a few thousand in the bank sort of handing out a $5 or something.
Indeed. But unlike, some philanthropist who gives a tenner to a street beggar, companies like Nvidia are going to behave like venture capitalists, and they're going to expect a very distinct and profound return on their investment. And so it feels like a Faustian pact. Yes, you've got that uplift. And by the way, talking about share price, Nokia's share price did go down after all the announcements from this week, but it's down more or less to the level it was
when they made the investment.
When the when the Nvidia thing came along. Just to note,
so it's still up quite a bit.
And it's still up on year to date. It's up 35%. But these will mainly have been factors that predated the Nvidia thing. But just to quickly finish, I just think that's my concern, Gabe, is how much getting into bed with Nvidia then constrains your future strategy, and how much you have to then be constantly thinking, are they getting return on their investment when you're deciding which direction to go in?
It might turn out to be a really good decision. For one, I suppose you can't really put this as a side point. They have this AnyRAN concept, so they themselves want to be portable. That's a little bit debatable as to how portable they really are, but that obviously they're aware of that and they've got that idea going. If it is a full pivot to Nvidia, that's what they're indicating, but it's not totally clear. Mm-hmm. It could turn out to be a really good move. I mean, for the last, I would say at least the last 10 years, probably longer, people in the industry and pundits have been speculating that, mobile network companies, vendors, don't have the scale to keep up to state-of-the-art in silicon development. There's just not enough units. The development costs are so high.
And there's plenty of anecdotal evidence to support that.
So, when you've got a juggernaut like Nvidia giving massive improvements all the time, you can't You
Well,
can't ignore that.
Just
Right?
stick to your core competence.
That's
and
the
let
main
them do what they
compelling
do.
argument for for cloud RAN and like
that's-
AI RAN
yeah.
and virtual RAN, really.
So it might well be a good
Silicon's
idea.
their core competence. Our core competence is radios or whatever.
And
Well,
it happens to be this silicon is quite good for the radio processing and
No,
for the
not
AI.
even that though. It's just too small for you to. The amount that you have to pump, like the purpose-built silicon, Ericsson would still say is more efficient than Z6.
But is it worth it?
But it's you put so much money into it, and they're capital constrained.
Well,
they're not
they-
making
they just don't have
the
the
returns
units,
on
the
it. They don't
volume.
have the units and the volume to justify it. So
Yeah, it all makes sense.
So for Ericsson, it's a big. That's probably for another discussion. For Ericsson, it's a big sort of strategic issue of what they call MCAT, their silicon strategy for baseband to start with. It is the case, that, and again, no one's ever totally clear, right? But the purpose-built basebands are massively more performant than the virtual ones at the moment.
Yeah,
Like gigantic.
the general purpose ones. Yeah.
So what Ericsson does is going to be very interesting in baseband. My guess is they're not going to, Nvidia would have done this with Ericsson if Ericsson had taken the money, I imagine.
yeah,
They've
I reckon they
had-
talked to Ericsson first. Probably
They've had a lot of history.
They must have had a chat.
They've had a lot of history of with the two companies.
And
working
Ericsson,
together already.
back to all this flag waving stuff, Ericsson's much more America aligned anyway. So
Yeah, and bigger.
Well, I mean,
yeah, and bigger. Yeah,
in mobile, but not necessarily in telecom.
No, yeah.
fair enough because of all the Infinera and all that. Yeah,
So what they do is going to be quite interesting. My guess is for the 6G cycle or the early of it, they're going to carry on with Ericsson Silicon as an option, simply because you want to control your own destiny to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And that's the risk with what Nokia are doing. They know this. So the thing about putting it in the AirScale chassis, the card that goes in, they understand. I was saying about if you're BT or Telecom Italia just signed a big deal, what are you actually getting?
Yeah.
Well, they're aware that they've got to
stick
migrate
the card in
it
or not.
in that way.
Yeah,
My guess is Ericsson are going to want to have a little bit more control of their own destiny, just in case it goes wrong. Or this is the other thing with Nokia. At the start of prior to 5G getting underway, the regime then took a punt on some advanced technologies, more in the radio, it turned out. So that's the other thing. There's still a radio, which is the biggest part of the BOM anyway, where you're going to need some sort of semi-custom silicon or, as well. And it didn't work. So when Nokia tried to leapfrog then, they landed in the wrong spot.
yeah.
And it was a bad decision. So this is why
Land on the wrong lily pad.
this is what just makes me a bit nervous. And
It's high risk. As you
it's
said.
high risk. Yeah, look, it might turn out great, and hopefully it does. But I'm just kind of worried about like the next 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of relevant to a slight tangent I want to go on. You mentioned 6G, and it's something we were chatting about just before the pod, and we don't have time to go fully down this rabbit hole. But this week there's been lots of talk about dedicating a lot of higher frequency spectrum to 6G.
Before you go on to that,
Yeah, go on.
because you wanted to talk about Tommy Wito, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Well, let me finish because I don't want to.
If you go down that rabbit hole, that'll be it for the rest of the podcast, I imagine.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
Don't you
no,
think?
Tommy Wito.
I'm just
Okay, let me
saying,
get my
it's like-
speculation about Tommy Wito. No, because I was framing it to say that I know that we're not going to go too far down this. Let me just finish this, and I'll attempt to keep a lid on the sort of tangent. One of the ways, and the reason it's relevant to what we've been talking about now, it's not a completely new topic. So one of the ways when I had a briefing with Nvidia about this announcement with Nokia, and this is when we had this briefing, it should be stressed, the investment hadn't been announced then. It was just a technology partnership was what we were being briefed on. You probably had the same flow of information. And one of the things they spoke about was some of the processing that needs to be done to make the best out of this higher frequency spectrum, beamforming and all that jazz. And then this week, and we've seen it plenty of other times, we're saying people going on about how we need tons of higher frequency spectrum for 6G for reasons that aren't immediately obvious. And maybe next week's guest, I'll never name our guest in case they have to pull out. Maybe next week's guest is going to want to go down this rabbit hole more. But that did seem like a coherent explanation for why it's worth investing in this, spending more money on the processing in the RAN, is because you got to do a lot more processing to make the best out of this relatively shit spectrum. How does that
Does
that resonate with you?
Yeah. Relevant, germane to this, there's the baseband side. You could see that being well achievable with the Nvidia cards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've already
a
talked
lot of that stuff, the beamforming stuff, a lot of that's in the radio
It's
unit.
in the radio unit where there's still going to
Yeah.
need to be, and Nokia's going to need to do, and they are doing, as far as I know, custom, semi-custom silicon, or they're working with partners. In that there's a whole different set of requirements there that have, and there you need RFIC and stuff that's optimized and.
Fair enough.
So
I'm pleased I brought it up.
So they've still got to do all of that as well. This isn't like the Nvidia thing is one part of a RAN system. It's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
They did recognise that just in HOTARD. It's like this is the baseband stuff, like the radios, like we can't virtualise or do. Yeah,
and
it's like that's different.
That's where they had the trouble before.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing. It's like their baseband strategy at the moment has actually been quite good, I think.
They've got very competitive baseband.
Yeah. I mean, like the concerns recently that people like Lum were writing about, if you buy into it all.
Earl's critique was more on the radio.
It was on the radio units.
Yeah.
It was on like things like, I mean, I'm not sure if that's all accurate, but because they would sort of dispute some of that, I'm sure, but it was all to do with like you've got fans in your units and there's
I remember that.
Sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's a sort of that's a whole other topic, really.
Yeah, we don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to stop me going down rabbit holes.
I looked up Omdir, Remy at Omdir. He does essentially a competitive analysis, and Nokia's baseband score after all these factors that go into it is really good. It's a solid product.
Yeah, well, that was one other thing, and then I'll move on to Tommy, and then maybe we'll have time to quickly ask you about something completely unrelated to this. Is this whole need for a big showy reorg and all that sort of thing? I got the impression that Nokia was perhaps not as quickly as investors would like, or as quickly as the board or HOTARD or would like. I got the impression it was heading in the right direction on mobile. They went to all the trouble of getting us over to Oulu to show us this pretty impressive new R&D and manufacturing tech facility.
Technologically, yeah, but not commercially.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is, and I'm posing this as a question for you to answer.
That's a good question, because my thing
it's so good that I didn't even need to ask.
No, but I was just going to preempt you by saying is the technology thing with the AI RAN move going to actually reinvigorate them commercially? That's the thing.
Yeah, and I guess what I was leading up to is do they need to make big moves, or should they just be more patient and trust in the process that was already in place?
I think they need to make. I mean, given their forecast for where the RAN's going to be in 2028, I think they probably need to make big moves.
Fair enoh. Cool.
But because then they're saying,
I don't have a strong opinion on it myself.
It's a flat. The thing that's kind of missing from all of this, I think, was, the first of these AI RAM products, as I understand, they're supposedly doing trials with TMUS, like T-Mobile US. That is its stock market ticker, though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, we say TMUS.
Yeah, next year.
TMUS.
And then products like 2027.
Yeah, I've got the roadmap.
But their outlook for while you look that up, I'll just witter on. But their outlook for 2028 is like that the RAN's like still the same in terms of revenues, and then HOTARD put that chart up where he showed these two columns, like 2025 RAN addressable market, 2028 RAN addressable market, exactly the same size. And then there was this kind of hopeful thing about, well, traffic's going up. There's going to be a lot more uplink because of things like smart glasses and 6G use cases that are going to completely transform the mobile experience. And yeah, okay, even if you buy into that, and some people don't, how do the telcos actually make money from this? Because if they're not making money from this, then they're not going to be inspired to or compelled to sort of spend a lot more money on their networks. That's the key thing in all of this. That was the whole like API story. Is like, how can we sort of unlock some value in the networks and try and get the telcos to make more money, and then they'll spend more money with us. And that still seems to be kind of missing. That's like the missing ingredient, I feel, is like to do something about it.
If you put that constraint on their business, which is a flattish market, which is fact, you can't change facts, as it were.
No.
You've got to go within that. You've got to work with the market you've got rather than the one you'd like. And
Yeah,
so
but I'm just wondering,
that's the nutshell of why there are all these job cuts.
yeah, I know, but I'm just guessing. I'm struggling to see. Okay, if I'm buying it like from their angle, there may be the efficiencies that you get in the future with GPUs and the opportunities to do like spectral efficiency gains with Nvidia chips, and maybe there's some AI and RAM that comes along with that anyway. Maybe that all works out very well, and it's like so compelling that people are going to want to buy these products. Maybe that's the story, but they didn't have
I think that story. I think AI and all these new technologies, 6G, this whatever you want to talk about, it's going to make the systems are going to get a bit better in many places, and overall get a bit better and a bit better and a bit better.
Yeah,
but it's not going to change the point you're talking about, which is how much money is coming into the ecosystem to start with. What the what we're doing on our how much we're paying per month, all of that. And it's just a slightly frustrating thing about the AI opportunity for telcos. We'd spend a lot of time talking about what silicon such and such a vendor will use or different feature. But if AI is going to be a success for them, surely they've got to be looking at how, with the networks they have and the near-term products and technology we have, how we can monetize it better, right? I mean, if it's such a big opportunity, which it seems like it, it's got to start bringing more into the industry from from that side. And really, what the Nvidias and all these other people should be doing, if they want to essentially support the industry or catalyze it, I think was the word used. Funneling in better services, better applications that use phone networks, telecom networks. That would be the best thing.
But
because then a lot of these problems would solve themselves. But at the moment, the problems are because it's a flat revenue environment and with inflation.
So they've got to look external.
But even if, let's say, it does stay flat, and I mean, I'm curious about the AI for RAN stuff, and there's been some like ludicrous, well, maybe they're not ludicrous, I don't know, but some very optimistic forecasts put out by Nvidia about what you can do with GPUs in terms of spectral efficiency. Like they put numbers out like you can have like 100% improvement stuff.
Yeah.
Now to me, it's like curious that the big RAN kit vendors are putting out this sort of thing, because doesn't that mean that if you talk to a company that Scott and I have talked to quite a bit recently, Cohere, with its like USM product, which you hear people like Bell Canada and Vodafone sort of like swooning over. And I talked to Bell Canada in Fuse, and I said, does this basically, like, are you so interested in this because it basically allows you to make more efficient use of spectrum and deploy less equipment? And it was Brad, and he basically went, yeah, that's exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
So if they're talking about AI for RAN in the same context, then don't these guys then sell less equipment? And where's the sort of upside for them?
From what I mean, there's loads of aspects to this, but throughout the RAN stack, there are lots of ways you can improve performance. And I think that's going to be one of the really interesting things. Like, I don't want to go too far into 6G, but everyone's like, oh, it's going to be more of the same. It's 6 gigahertz. It's all these problems. Fine. It's much bigger opportunity than that, because there's a chance to go through all the existing bands, all the existing infrastructure, and sort of essentially redesign the full stack for RAN and get way more efficiencies out of existing bands with good range. It's going to be. And
then why do you need all this 6 gigahertz stuff anyway?
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a different.
Leave that with the Wi-Fi guys. Yeah.
But, yeah, that's probably for another time.
I wasn't planning on going through that.
I saw what's his name, who's on the pod
That's not going to be the most interesting
commenting
thing,
on LinkedIn about it. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
I don't think that's going to be the most interesting, because we already know 3.5 gig is got its uses, but it's not amazing for getting to an indoor studio like this, for example.
No.
Or
I want to. I'm going to quickly just say my bit on
about Tommy Rita.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly say that now. I'm not necessarily opening up to tons of conversation, just because there's one other thing I want to pick Gabe's brains about before we call it a day. And
lost track of how many beers I've had.
You're about to start your fourth, mate.
That's the limit on the pod.
Go on, son.
Decided.
Yeah, that's the limit. So that's kind of the way in which I keep track of it.
That's how I keep track of it.
Basically one every half hour, and we do 2 hours.
I mean, they're small beers, so.
Yeah. Tommy Wito, he's been there forever. We met him recently in Finland. He's synonymous with Nokia Mobile, as far as I'm concerned. And now he's out. He's not just out; he's out at the end of the year. So he's
Well, he's not out of the company.
Well, he's out of the senior leadership team or whatever. Oh, so what is he? So I missed that. Tell me what he's going to be doing even when he's not on the senior leadership team.
Unclear, but they were very keen to make out when I sort of inquired that he's not actually leaving. He's not leaving. He's not leaving.
Okay.
Leaving. He's just not on the GLT anymore. Because the way they've restructured it is, so I'm guessing what his role is head of radio. So there's 3 units within mobile infrastructure now. There's
I suppose they can't keep
core, radio and technology.
I suppose they can't keep him on the group leadership team if they're announcing that they're going to have a different person head of that other mega silo.
Yeah, so the head of the mega silo is Justin for the time being.
Yeah.
And then the head of the other mega silo is David. And then underneath Justin on the bits that have been brought together, he's head of one of those units. He's head of radio.
So he's been, it feels, yes.
But he's not on the GLT because that bit that he was doing doesn't exist anymore, basically.
Fair enough. So I was going to say it feels like a demotion. Do you think that's a correct
Yeah, it does feel like a demotion. And then I guess the question is whether he'd want to stay after that. After that. And I don't have any insight into that. I don't know. But
My other bit of... No, I'm just asking you to blindly speculate as I'm doing.
I mean, I'd be a little bit surprised, to be honest, if he was around.
So would I. Because normally you get someone who, everyone, especially ambitious people, and presumably nearly everyone who's very senior is ambitious by definition.
Yeah.
They get to a point where it's clear that their ambitions within that organisation have peaked. Usually they just think, well, fuck that, then they either retire or they go and find some new project. But my other speculation concerns the Nvidia thing. I wonder whether, and this is completely idle speculation, and I'm asking you to do the same if you're inclined or not. Maybe Tommy was never that mad about this whole Nvidia move and this whole AI RAM move.
I think it's interesting you bring that up. Because when I asked him about GPUs in March at Mobile World Congress, he went, it doesn't make techno-economic sense. And it would only make techno-economic sense if, that's the expression he used exactly, I think.
Techno-economic.
Yeah, it only add up like techno-economically if there was AI and RAN.
Exactly. So it's more than just beamforming chips.
If you were using those like the idle cycles, as like Yoga Tenorio calls it, to do like AI inferencing, and then then it makes sense to then put this as a RAN on it as well, and you get some efficiency.
But that's not a proven thing, is it?
Well, that's not, and that's also not what they're talking about at the moment anyway. They're very much talking about positioning it as a RAN only thing. So it's it's a markedly different. Strategy from his one in March. Has he changed his mind dramatically in the last few months? Has he been convinced?
Apparently not.
Has he I think it's really interesting. Has that been a point of conflict with the current approach?
That's my guess.
I don't know.
Based on fuck all inside information, but that's my guess.
It's good speculation.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon that speculation, Gabe?
I think it's definitely valid speculation. I don't know if you'll necessarily find out because famously he sort of bleeds purple, right? So,
what does that mean? Bleeds purple?
Nokia's purple.
Is it?
Colour on its
I never
logos
realised Nokia was a purple thing.
They have like a purple.
Well, they're all over the place. They're quite spectrumy right now.
Yeah, they did that. But anyway,
by that I mean in terms of the colour scheme.
Ever bad mouthing.
No.
He's not going to.
And he's.
Although Tommy, if you do leave and you feel like having a pop, you know where we are.
Because.
No, of course he wouldn't.
He's not going to do that.
No, of course he wouldn't.
He is a team guy, and it's nothing more.
Yeah, and this
professionally than having Nokia do well.
Yeah.
It's more than his personal.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they'll take care of him, and it's all very civilized and all that. But it still seems reasonable to assume that they've gone. Look, Tommy, we're going this way. You're either all in or you might as well
I think there's probably more. I mean, my guess, total speculation. I don't expect to ever get
confirmation or whatever.
But I wouldn't mind betting he's gone, I'm not totally all in. There's a lot of things here that are going to be.
Yeah.
You don't want me going over to America every 2. I mean, he travels like crazy anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe he's gone, with all this might be, I've done my bit. I've pulled it out of the mire.
Yeah.
This is your gig now, Justin. Fucking go for it.
I'll stick around and help out while someone new, some hot shot from American tech company comes in and
Who used to be at
creates havoc.
Intel and HP.
Who used to be or something.
Bring Elon back.
One of those kinds of companies. They're selling his microwave. I know he's got personal affection for that business, right? Because
Micro is one of the bits in the unwanted pile.
Yeah,
I would say, about him generally, because he came in after things had gone really badly wrong under Mark Ruah, who then went to Dish.
Yeah.
My objective view is I think he's done a really good job on the technology side. They were not in a very good place back in sort of 2019, 2020 and losing deals because of that.
Yeah.
And I think to get them from that position where they were then, which was a long way behind like the other companies, and people were worried about, I think one of the things about Open RAN was we don't just want to have Ericsson if Huawei gets banned, yeah?
Yeah.
They didn't want to use Nokia at all. Almost.
Indeed.
To get it from there to where it is now, where they've won some market share in some, European deals from Ericsson, and, ignoring what's gone on in the US. And one of those is very, very old thing anyway. And I think the other one wasn't. I'm not convinced that it was to do with dissatisfaction with Nokia's products. I think it was more about a kind of let's go with the vendor that was the biggest one for having this sort of SMO thing and all that. I think he's done a really good job of getting it sort of ship shape, and the problem has been the commercials, but it's like we were saying, it's just a flat market and it's a hard market to make money in at the moment. So
okay, all right, we'll wrap up that sort of mega segment there because we haven't got too much time left.
We wake Pierre up now.
he's awake. He's just doing
whatever
he does for the pod normally. I've never asked him what he looks at when he's on the pod. I presume it's YouTube videos or something.
Football, and he's turned to checking the football news.
In a minute. Well, not in a minute, but in a little while he'll start making throat-cutting gestures because he's got shit to do. So completely change the subject, if only so that I've got a third segment to put in my little
advertising
write-up of it. You were telling us before we started recording that you'd been to a BT event, so I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I went to the BT International Analyst Day on Tuesday. I think it was.
So that refers to a
Thursday.
business unit called BT International as opposed to analysts from lots of different countries.
Yeah, but there were analysts from lots of different countries
as
there.
Well. Yeah.
It's an event they've had. I went last year as well. It's a little bit outside my purview in the sense that it's pretty much focused on enterprise services.
Okay.
It's just analysts, that.
Just analysts, yeah. And
were you getting some FOMO, Ian?
I was going to feel like I'd been left out.
Yeah. At least you got invited to the rugby.
But it was pretty interesting, actually. The main thing is that BT International is a new group. They've sold a lot of companies like Ireland, like Italy. They've created this new group. They now have ownership of their own international network assets. They've got their own profit and loss. People are speculating it's going to be spun out at some point. I'm not so sure on that, but it's sort of set up that way. Anyway, they gave the update, and it's actually pretty interesting. They had Bas Burger, he's the CEO, gave a sort of, here's
Which
what
I
we're
think is
going
a
to do.
great name.
Bas Burger.
It is a good name.
So he, as these things are, he set out the sort of, here's what this new company's going to do. It's, we're realistic, but, we think we've got a really good position, etc. Followed up with Colin Bannon, the CTO, who's pretty well known on the circuit at like events and all that sort of thing, who went through, all the ins and outs of mainly Global Fabric, which so they would say they're the biggest provider of, they have the most connections into different clouds of any company in the world. I've got the numbers in my notes, I don't remember them right now, but they think they've got more connections into hyperscaler clouds and other data centers than any other company.
That's a fairly impressive claim.
So they're market leader. And they haven't really quite sort of full bore started monetizing yet. I think it's taken a bit of time to kind of come through and whatnot. But the thing that I thought you'd be interested in, both of them, and there was a theme with Alison Kirby, who I think we started this with when she signed on at BT.
Kirkby. She'd tell you.
Oh, was it Kirkby?
She had a go at an analyst for saying Kirby.
Kirkby.
She actually had a go at an analyst.
She said someone said a name wrong at some event, and she went Kirkby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian. Was this whole idea of a sovereign telco, and I think you had someone else on, didn't you?
Talking about sovereign stuff.
Yeah.
They had an
not long ago.
Alianza.
No.
Dag Peak.
I was talking to him in the office about it. I forgot his name's completely.
Carl.
How long ago was it?
Recently.
Not Carl.
No.
I thought you were talking about Carl.
All right, you carry on. I'll look in our podcast and I'll throw some names at
Right.
you.
I know the name, it's just slipped. But anyway, so it's very interesting. There's a lot of emphasis on this idea of sovereign telco and how, if you're an international business and you currently today use SD-WAN services, say, over the internet, you kind of put it in and it pops out somewhere else, but you don't really know what's going on. The BT Global Fabric, they've got this underlay fully under their control. It's programmable and they can use that to route your traffic, give you some visibility, but importantly make sure it stays within certain jurisdictions or all these kinds of things. So this is, I think they hammed it up a bit, and this is extreme, but just to illustrate it, because I don't really understand it well enough, they're going to make sure your traffic doesn't go through Iran or something like that,
Right.
or Ukraine or wherever is kind of sensitive at that particular time, or
Yeah.
there was a lot of few years back, there was all this internet traffic was getting black holed into, China Telecom route update, and all the traffic would suddenly disappear into a black hole. So stuff like that, they're going to keep it on net and keep it visible and, sovereign essentially. Now, sovereign is generally, it's quite a tricky concept, right? It sort of generally means national, but not.
But when you're talking about digital stuff,
but
it's
not
quite a
inherently
slippery
because,
concept.
Yeah, and they went into that a lot actually, because they're saying a lot of their market, which is high-end, large enterprise, their boards and top management, this is like a massive thing for all of them now, for whether it's cyber or state-backed or whatever it is. So it's now a real big theme in all their top-end customers. And it's very tricky because they said there's a lot of people asking for air gap systems, but then they realise if it's air gapped, you don't connect to anything. So
Yeah.
it's this whole area is very interesting. Wish I kind of understood it better, but it was quite an informative session.
The global fabric thing, is that the bit that they're trying to sell? Is that right, or have I got that wrong?
That's the bit that people are speculating they could sell.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
It's in this group called BT International, which is
Well, the whole
that
BT
sounds like
International, I thought it was on the sales block.
supposedly,
Yeah.
to
but
some
the
extent.
global fabric sounds like they've done something. I mean, they're quite proud of it, obviously, because they keep bringing it up. It sounds like they've done something quite different from what other companies other telcos who are in the same market have.
Well,
been
they're
able to
saying all
put
the other
together.
telcos are retreating out of it.
Right.
Because it's the hyperscalers who have just been blowing them away. Because
Yeah.
hyperscalers are trying to keep everything on. They've got massive international networks. They've got this capability, but it's only within Google or
Yeah.
Azure or whatever. So they want to be the kind of Switzerland in
Yeah.
this world, which, customers also want to some degree.
It's where they put all their money.
In
Switzerland.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if Alison Kirkby has actually said
Well done.
they're trying to sell it or not. I'm not. I know
I
it's
don't think
definitely.
she's explicitly said
There's a lot of
it, but-
speculation about it.
Yeah.
To me, looking just the gut feel I got from it is, why would they?
If it's that good.
Yeah, it's not losing a lot of money yet, and it could do quite well.
But they've also been quite keen to sort of say they're more domestically focused and
Yeah, I think that's where I was getting it from.
But I mean, you know how these things go. They've done quite a lot of that.
They've
already.
retreated from other international stuff. I guess maybe that's where I was
Well,
getting it from.
Ireland's been sold, and Italy.
There you go.
And this other thing they called Radians, which is the financial services.
Yeah.
So
So
there's been a bit of retrenchment
I
and
feel like they
consolidation.
could
and all that.
keep this. Now it's a separate business. They can sort of sell it if they want, but
Yeah, and it seems to be going well according
keep
to.
it ticking on.
I think it's a shame if I was going to be critical of her, that she's quite like
Who, Kirby?
yeah
Kirkby.
Kirkby.
I was just trying to wind you up.
She's the impression I've got of her is that she's like a very effective manager, but she's quite sort of conservative in terms of her, strategy for the company, and
Yeah.
doesn't really seem that like. I mean, you don't want someone with ludicrous ideas, but like
Don't want
the
someone going
international
mental.
side of it and things like global fabric maybe could be an opportunity for them, because there's only so much they're going to get out of doing fibre
does
in
get-
the UK.
It does get a bit old if you think, and I'm not saying this applies to Alison Kirkby at all, but it does get a bit old if you think you have. Sometimes I apply this to the UK. You have the concept of managed decline,
Yeah.
where there's sort of it's not very aspirational. You consider. We chatted about this maybe after we came back from New York. You consider the attitude of somewhere like the States, where they can be very buccaneering and often in a quixotic ill-fated way.
Good word.
But at least they're giving it a go. Whereas we always seem to be slightly fatalistic and go, well, let's just try and make sure things aren't too shit, and maybe, just cut a little bit and get a bit more margin from lowering overheads. But there's nothing very entrepreneurial or risk taking about it.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's always. But then again, we'll be the first to criticise a CEO if they do roll the dice and just go, "Fuck it, I'm going to try this."
That's what I've just been doing. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to try this, and then it looks like bollocks. So there is a balance to be had there, and I guess it's easy for us pundits to characterise someone as either too conservative or too sort of risk taking.
It's also a bit the ebb and flow of the different businesses, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Maybe that's their cycle, and then there'll be another one. And
I think she's quite appropriate for the cycle they're in at the moment, and she certainly seems to have. I think we said this earlier, like more of a common touch than the previous, boss of the company. So,
yeah,
which is helpful when you're trying to make layoffs and not be perceived to be being sort of nasty. She seems to be able to sort of get away with this, like we're being quite aggressive on cost cuts and taking staff out, but nobody's saying that she's this ruthless, sort of predatory, like money-grabbing CEO at the same time.
And there's
the Indian investors have come in pretty much.
Yeah, they have
25% stake.
Yeah,
and more or less said, "You've got to make massive cuts."
yeah.
Well, the communication.
Is that the Ambanis or the Bharti?
I think it's Bharti, isn't it?
It's Bharti, yeah. Can't remember what that's a family as well.
Yeah,
this is just called Bharti.
Yeah.
That's
right. Okay, fine.
Bharti Enterprises.
Yeah.
Airtel's
and you got Bharti Airtel,
of the main telco in India.
And the Ambanis are the ones that are in Geo, are they?
Yeah.
Reliance Industries.
Yeah, they basically just got. It's just succession in India, isn't it? They just got like 2 or 3 massive families that just fucking run everything.
25% owner of BT, so they've got a say. And
no, it's big. No, you're right. It's big.
But it's kind of this is probably for literally a long time away podcast, but it's kind of interesting that and so a little bit the problem Nokia has as well in its share price, and the same for BT, is there aren't enough local investors in local companies. It's a massive issue in the UK stock market in general. But no one in Britain really wants to buy a national champion telco, which is critical for all of us.
Yeah, or even a football club.
But no one wants to own it, right?
Even the Jack Walker days of buying Blackburn Rovers are over.
And obviously we want our pensions to do as well as possible, so we want them to invest in Nvidia. But it's very difficult for telcos if you're managing for a share price. You've got to have people who want to buy it, and people just basically don't. So
I don't think I'd buy Nvidia now. I think a few people have exited. SoftBank, Masayoshi Son, is that his name?
Yeah. Teal.
Peter Thiel. Yeah, a few people have just gone, nah, I think I'm calling the top. And there was someone
that sort of short-selling guy. What's his name? Not Teal.
Oh, yeah, we mentioned him, the big short guy.
The big short guy.
Yeah.
He's been quite downbeat about the whole AI thing recently, hasn't he?
Well, it's just people trying to call the top of the market.
They are. And you never know when the bubbles burst, because they have these little drops and then it goes up again.
And it gets more. If you look at the .com bubble, it got really jagged around the late 1999.
That's a classic example. It does this a few times, and then the last one it just carries on going.
And then obviously the benefit of hindsight. Yeah, you sell at the peak of that. That was
a long time, by the way. People are sort of saying, well, it's not a bubble because it just keeps going up, which is a bit of a silly thing to say, I always think. But the one because I remember working in doing 3G bid book rubbish. I always talk about this, don't I, on the podcast.
That's right, it's relevant.
But that went on for 4 years. The late 90s, it was really long, that the period when it was just going up and up and up and up, and everybody's like, well, it's there was speculation about when it would be the popping of it, but
so I'm just going to have a quick look at the Nasdaq this year.
But I was looking at Microsoft, and
he's with us.
Was
there he is
adjusted? Obviously it split several times since, but it was at $45. Let's call it at its peak, and you look at after the bubble burst, and it's around 30. So that's a third, obviously. But
Microsoft.
Yeah, I thought it'd be like.
Yeah, but they weren't one of
at
the
least
stocks that would have been affected
worse.
by the 2000. They're talking about 2000. What happened in 2000?
Well, Microsoft massively peaked, so it obviously was affected.
Oh,
it's interesting that they only lost a third of value.
Okay. But there were some companies that were worse affected than Microsoft. They were not heavily invested in the internet, were they? Okay. They were like they said themselves. They missed out on the internet for years.
Let's do a poll. Let's say the bubble bursts in the next. Obviously, it's not in one day. In the next 4 weeks. Nvidia is at 4.6 trillion. Where would it be at its lowest? How low do you think it would get?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Do you
Well,
think it would half?
like that?
More than half?
It could no, it wouldn't be half, but it could drop off a fair bit when you consider how much it's gone up.
But it would still
Well, what
be
did
at
Cisco
least half.
look at Cisco?
Yeah, I guess so. That seems like a
what
fair
Cisco-
assumption.
Look at what Cisco did maybe in 2000.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that much of a guide anyway. I mean,
No, I'm just wondering.
That's the parallel that people
I think
like
we
to
didn't
draw.
get onto though, which if the news of the week also was the Gemini 3 launch.
I've barely looked at
Okay.
that.
Sorry, Cisco was much worse.
Cisco went all over the place.
Cisco was as high as almost $70, and then this was in April of 2000, and then in February
Of
so
2001.
we're talking 9 months later. It was at actually let's go a year later. 2 years later, it was at 14.
Yeah. So this
that's
is
a dramatic.
that's what he's looking at. That's the Cisco spike. The
Yeah.
Cisco spike. I'm just showing him Cisco around 2000. That was
They're
particularly
eventually
mental.
now back up to where they were in 2000.
So yeah, Cisco's still not as high as its peak in 2000.
No, they are.
Just about.
They're
I don't know.
they're $4 higher, which is and I'm
75.
I'm nitpicking. But.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to nitpick. I reckon it went even higher. It went higher than 77. Cisco at its peak. Sorry, mate.
Oh, but here it's a 60.
It's the two
I
towers.
just want to show you one other thing. The Nasdaq. I'm showing you the Nasdaq on Google Finance for the Max, and this is how spiky it was around about 2000. And then look at, but even then, the Nasdaq's peak was about sort of 5,000. Nasdaq's now at 22,000.
Cisco in 1990 was 10 cents a share. So
Yeah, it's a lot later. Though.
It's looking
20 years later. So
I know, but it's still looking volatile. You look at how jagged that is.
these indexes are supposed to go up. That's the thing, isn't it? They're supposed to accumulate value, and
Well, they're just an aggregate of a bunch of share prices. They're not supposed to do anything. They're just
except for the market efficiency thesis is a bit like it's meant to reflect value, right? But at the moment, they're all like the indices now are driven, especially
indices, not indexes. Yes,
by these top 7 companies or whatever it is. And this is the whole problem in tech.
What do
And
they
this is
call
why-
them? Big daddies or something.
This
They got
is-
some
that's
name.
exactly what they
yeah,
call
like
them.
the SP 500 is heavily Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, all of that. And
Magnificent Seven. That's what I was looking for. Sounds just like Big
and
Daddy.
the rest of tech's been having a terrible time. That's why there's all these layoffs all across all of tech. It's not telecoms isn't actually that different to
Yep.
Yeah, there's
many
been
other tech.
there's been so
parts
much
of the
cool
tech
commentary
sector.
about this sort of artificial economy that's completely decoupled from the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Pierre, you got stuff to
So
do.
maybe they shouldn't pay Elon Musk $1 trillion then, after all.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a separate thing. I think
That's a depart from reality.
Don't go there.
no, but I think Elon Musk
Just do what you're gonna do.
he's just an attention seeker. No, I will wrap it up. He's just an attention seeker, and we fall for it every time we go. Have you seen what that fucker did this time? He's like Trump. He's the Trump of tech, basically, which is why they were destined to fall out because there's only room enough in a given room for one Trump. Okay, nice one.
Like Highlander.
There can be only one. They've just remade Highlander.
Oh, they're about to. Yeah, Russell Crowe and Henry Cavill. Yeah,
I might check it out.
What the fuck?
they had to delay though because
Oh, is it-
Russell Crowe playing?
he's
He's huge.
He's playing Sean Connery.
yeah.
He's too big. He can't wield a sword. He can barely stand up.
Bless
But
him.
Henry Cavill
No, he's
did
all
his,
right. He's in decent shape for an older
He's not in
geezer.
decent shape.
No?
No, he was in a film recently. He's like 25 stone or something. He's huge. He's not 25
It's
stone, but
makeup.
he's really big.
He's actually shredded. It's all makeup. The Nuremberg one you're talking about.
Yeah, he's playing
I'm gonna
Goering.
get
Well,
the
Goering
picture.
was a fat bastard.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to get the picture of Russell Crowe as he looks now, and meanwhile
Anyway,
you can wrap it up.
but I was a massive fan. Me and my mate Gavs, who some of you have met, massive fan of Highlander when we were like teenagers, and we were listening to Kind of Magic, the Queen soundtrack that went along with it. So it's definitely one of the things that I associate with my sort of mid-teens is Highlander.
Better to burn out than.
Fade away. Okay. On that note, we're going to fade away to the pub. Gabe, great to have you on again, mate. I was just looking, I was trying to find out the thing you were referring to when I was looking at the pods, when you were talking about the sovereignty. Well, he does look a fat bastard there, I'll give you that. He's just showing me a picture of Russell Crowe.
Just go on a 6-month.
He's shaded a lot since then. He did Ozempic.
Was it Lee Mile from Neos Networks, or was it William Webb?
William Webb.
Ah, there we go. Cool. All right. And I noticed while scrolling down that you were on quite recently, August the 18th. So yeah, you're getting up there with people like William Webb as a returning guest, and that's all to the enrichment of the pod. So thanks again for coming on, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Did that sound sarky?
He's already working away from the microphone.
Like obviously Nokia's a company I've covered for so long that it's good to speculate on, and
Well, they keep us on our toes. And by the way, Ericsson, Nokia comes on the pod quite a lot, so you got to offset that, yeah. But no, they're interesting, and they give us all something to do. So thanks for that, if nothing else, Nokia. All right, I'll wrap it up there. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest. So thanks for listening, and make sure you join us for that one.